how are you?
Good, Faye. How are you today?
I'm wonderful. I'm always feeling wonderful whenever I get together with you. So welcome back to Health, Wellness, and Lifestyle.
Great,
I
great.
I have been dying to talk to you because there's so much disorientation going on. We're trying to figure out what direction to go when this all first happened, and we're still trying to find a direction, but in a different way now. We're hearing about all this, phase one, phase two. People don't know how to go from phase to phase. So there's a lot I want to cover with you today. Also, I want to also talk about something that's constantly trending and it's going to keep trending is how to support yourself, your immune system, what we can do to keep moving forward. It is so essential to keep focused and on track with that. And no one's better than to help us get in the right direction than you right now. So super excited.
Well, I think it's a good point that you bring up. It's sort of we are in this phase of what do we do now? I mean, I even see it in myself. Sort of, I was thinking about yesterday when I was biking home from work. I was thinking, there's a lot more traffic on the streets now. There was actually even traffic going into the Holland Tunnel, which hasn't happened since March. There's a lot of stuff going on now. And it's sort of like, so for me, I was kind of like, I'm used to being alone. I almost have this fear of being around other people. Yet I've been around people the whole time, but it's kind of been in a very controlled environment, like in my office. So like I can keep them away from me. I can figure out, I can decide how many people are in the office at the same time, that sort of thing. So now I'm sitting here, okay, the building's going to more and more people are going to start coming to this building. It's not just going to be me and my staff and that's it. So how am I going to deal with wanting to be on an elevator with these people? How am I going to deal with, now that I'm biking and there's more people on the street, it's a little anxiety provoking. And I don't want it to be anxiety provoking. And I think that's where what I heard you sort of mention, I'm only giving it in a more specific way. Like that's, for me, that's how it manifests. Like, I don't like crowds anyway. I've never been a big crowd person. When I was a kid, we're all kids. We all love crowds. But once I became an adult, I was like, I don't really like being around 15, 70, 100,000 other people, even though I live in Manhattan. But that's beside the point. I live in the quietest part of Manhattan, but because of that reason. And now it's sort of like I used to love going down by the river. Now there's too many people down by the river for my comfort level. And it's less than there were last year at this time, but my comfort level has changed. So I think we really need to start, or at least what I've been doing is meditating on it, thinking about it, putting myself, which is what I generally do for me, is putting myself in that uncomfortable environment. So instead of taking my bike and driving down a street that I will know will have less people, I will drive down the street that is the more direct route with more people. So just to try to get more acclimated to being with people again, because I think that's going to be difficult for all of us to sort of, we all kind of want to run out and socialize, but then there's that, do I really want to run out and socialize with people I don't know? And like, that sort of thing. So it's been a little off-putting for me, especially because we have no direction from government or from anyone really. There's no voice out there.
Here's the disorientation I was talking about. And, one of the key things, the way you're describing it, more precisely than I guess I generalized it more, is people are finding a new way to adapt, right? And you have to try to find a way to adapt. But this is so much disorientation because we don't know what direction. People want to go to the next phase. They don't know how to go. And it's terrifying. After we have completely shut down, completely stopped, kind of almost like hibernated or closed ourselves off, how do you start again? How do you adapt? How do you put the best foot forward?
Well, you also have that, plus you also have, especially in the part of the world where we live in, where I don't think there's any of us who have not been affected by this in one way or another, whether it's your own family, somebody close that that sort of thing. I think we've all been affected by this. So there's that level of fear for us too. Then we see people in other parts of the country on beaches, hanging around, doing everything, acting like nothing's going on. And then we sit back and we know that, and we have that fear, right? Because we know what it's like when this thing ramps up and goes crazy.
Yep.
So it's almost this, we're all kind of like, we're in this judgy mode, like we're judging other people. This woman, the woman in Central Park who got yelled at this black gentleman because she wasn't wearing her mask. Like it was, I mean, it's just,
It's disorientation. It's crazy a little bit.
it's completely disorienting. Plus, being inside for so long, we don't know what time of the year it is, right? I mean, I have no idea that it's almost June, right? Like Memorial Day happened last weekend. Like what? Like
I still have half my winter clothing out. I'm still trying to assess, even from that perspective, to mentally prepare myself. What season am I getting into? Some of us were like, what day are we on? You're trying to keep yourself healthy, but you're trying to keep your mind, you're losing track a little bit, and you feel like you lose that control.
Well, because most of us don't do well without structure, and most of us are not self-structured. Luckily, I'm a self-structured person because I own my own business, so it's sort of, I'm very self-structured. But for people who go to work every day, I'm not on the train. I'm not getting my coffee from this place. I'm not on the bus. I'm not doing this. I'm not seeing these same people that you see all the time. Because even in Manhattan, riding the subway to go to work, I would see the same people at the same time every day going to their jobs. So even if you didn't say hello to them, it was like they were there. It's kind of like knowing that tree is still there. It's like it's a marker almost in your head.
Sure.
So I guess sort of what I've been trying to do is again, putting myself in an uncomfortable situation safely. Of course, I'm not going to go in a crowd of 20-year-olds and go in a pool, but you know what I mean. I probably will go down to the river this weekend and just kind of see how I feel. If I last 5 minutes, I last 5 minutes. If not, whatever. But the thing is, so I've been doing that. I've been trying to practice meditation. Again, it's not easy, but meditation simply means everything gets shut off. I'm in a quiet room, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, wherever my thoughts go, That's fine. So that's an easy way.
It's like setting up that sacred space, your space, shut it down, get yourself back on track, which I think is so important and key that you brought that up, because our mind has been going 50 miles an hour, or 100 miles an hour, trying to process. And there's a whole lot to process. There's going to be a whole lot to process. So just stop and meditate and get yourself in that sacred space, whatever you want to call it. It's really instrumental.
And think about how you interact with others. Right? Because that's another thing I've been thinking about, because whenever somebody gets close to me and I'm walking the dog on the street and they don't need to be close to me, I get anxious. I don't get anxious. I get angry.
Yeah.
Like, there's an entire 6-foot sidewalk. Why are you walking next to me?
Yeah.
Like, go walk over there. And like, I mumble things under my mask, but I think that's something to be very conscious of.
Yeah.
Like, you can't be angry with each other because the infamous they're making us angry with each other. They're making us fearful of our lives. There's a big control mechanism when people are afraid. You can control people when there's fear, and there's nothing but fear being perpetrated by, when you have things like social media censoring people, censoring docs like me who have different opinions. That's censorship. And I think that was in my newsletter today. Either it was in my newsletter today or it's in next week's, because I reviewed it today for next week. Is we can't be censored. If people have difference of opinions, we can't be censored. So it's important that we recognize how that makes us feel. And I think it's really important, even if people who have never thought about their feelings before, and I think that's something else too, Fay. I think a lot of people have to deal with emotions that could have hidden them in the commute, could have hidden them in the book I'm going to read during the commute, or, the podcast I'm going to listen to on my drive into work or whatever, because you could easily put emotions away. Now we're faced with these emotions right here, like they're in our face right now. So and with no clear direction from whether it's a doctor, whether it's a government organization, whether it's the head of the government itself, there's just no direction.
Well,
So
that's something, sorry to interrupt, I'm seeing from all ages, including children are going through the same thing that have never gone through before, even, in my own household. And I'm like, where did this just come from? That aren't, where it's like a tidal of emotion could hit you at once. Again, because it doesn't matter what age, we don't know what we can control, what we can't control, what we're used to doing. That routine is gone. Trying to find that sort of semblance, that's a lot of processing. Because we went through the immediate processing, the panic processing. What's going on? Oh my God, this virus. Oh,
that seems easy now in comparison, right? To what we have to go through now.
100%. And that's why and getting the proper direction or what's going on from the big bodies out there has been disorienting in itself, hard to process. Everyone's waiting anxiously to see, but the answers either that we're looking for, that we want or need, we're not getting fast enough.
Well, the answers I've decided have to come from you.
Yep.
Because, if there's nothing you can do about what's going on out there, the only thing you can do is what's going on in here.
Oh.
And so that's why yoga, meditation, how am I going to handle my fears? So what am I exercising? Am I continuing with my exercise? Am I continuing to eat right? Or at least practice eating right. You may not get it right 100% of the time. But what if you get it right 50% of the time?
And Doc, one thing I want to stress, because it's important, and it's important for someone like you, in the medical profession, but also so highly regarded and respected. It's okay if you haven't done these things, if you weren't eating right, if you were binging, you can try today. It's okay. That's what I wanted to check in with you, so people know it's okay. It's what you're doing starting today and moving forward.
Absolutely. Every day gives you the opportunity to create good and to feel good and to not get sidetracked by what we might hear on the news, what we might read, what we might see. Like I, for one, am trying to stay away from all social media, but I've turned off the alerts on my,
I did it.
It's just I can't do. There's so much negativity, right?
Toxic. It becomes toxic.
It becomes so toxic. So there was something ignorant on Facebook yesterday. And I hardly ever go on. I know, right? So I commented on it. I said, well, if they're censoring us, then why do we just stop using the app? Like, just stop. Why do we feel compelled to be on there 24/7, right? Don't use it. And someone quite who I respect, instant messaged me and said, well, how are we going to stay in touch with people without this? And I said, the same way we did before we had that. Telephones. Pick up the person and ask, because half the news you see isn't real anyway, right? So half the stuff you see isn't real. But, you don't know who's trying to influence us to do anything. So call people if you want to see who they are, right? I mean, that's who you call your real friends. You stay in contact with your real friends. These Facebook friends are not our friends. So do we really need to know? And then it's this feeding frenzy. I feel like this. Did you see this obscure news thing about this? And then it's like, oh my God, it creates this. I think if we got off of all social media and ignored the government for like a week, things would change 100%.
Well, I agree.
Better.
I agree 100%. And that's, people want to stay connected. And that's the biggest fear factor right now, is not staying connected. But you brought up something, which is, we're seeing all these things and it's feeding the frenzy. Something that has been coming up consistently this week in talking with people is like, oh, I heard the second wave is hitting already. The second wave is coming. I'm like, the second wave of what?
Let me tell you about the second wave. If you want to talk about, and if you want to talk about mortality rates and figures and all of that stuff, here's something you need to be really aware of, and I think everybody should be aware of this, and I think it's coming out in my newsletter next week, or it may have come out this week. if you look at the crude mortality rate of this, the crude mortality rate for those under 65 years old right now stands at 0.03%. That is 70, well, that is way, I'm not going to do math because someone will do the math for me and then say I was wrong. But the flu is 0.1% to 0.4%. This is 0.02%.
Wow.
So that is already, I'm not going to use the math terminology. It's not my favorite thing. But so that's what we know right now. So I often go back to that when I think about when I start getting chaotic and fearful and, when I'm out there in public. Because the mortality rate, if you're under 65, is super low. And I bet you when they do the math and they exclude people in nursing homes, I even think the above 65 rate is going to be super low as well. I just, we're a country looking for answers where there are none right now.
Yeah. Or it's not necessary to drive ourselves crazy with those type of numbers, those type of statistics, where it adds to a further bigger frenzy. It's not necessary.
Well, don't look at the statistics because you're not getting the right numbers now. Exactly. We don't have good testing still, and we don't have good testing, and we don't have what we need. We don't have history to create a scenario. We have a 3-month history of what's gone on, right? And most of that data is coming from New York because we had the most by far. But there are a lot of other places that are starting to kick in and test more. So maybe that's what people are thinking about the second wave. But the bottom line is, and this is what I really want people to know, the bottom line is that it doesn't matter how many people get infected. It matters how many people die. That is just like any disease. Doesn't matter how many people get breast cancer. It's how many people die from breast cancer. And I'm not being cavalier about breast cancer. Please, not at all. I'm not being cavalier about any of this. It's just, if I get the cold, if I get the flu, if I'm not dying from the flu, what difference does it make if I had it or not?
Well, and before we get into one other important question I wanted to ask you about what we could do for ourselves, one thing that because we have friends or acquaintances that are business owners or professionals, and they're like, oh, before our business opens up, before the office opens up, I think everybody should get tested. I think everybody should get out and get tested. And no, I think that's adding a little pressure. Or like, what are your thoughts on that? I mean,
Well, when we don't have adequate testing, we don't know. We don't know whether it's real or not. So you can get tested and be negative and be positive. You can be tested and be positive and be negative. Right before, the one thing I do still read is the medical news. And it said you could be tested positive, then be negative, then test positive again and not be infective. So why, all of this, and if I'm sorry, but I can't hear these words anymore. Testing is going to get us out of this. Testing is going to make a good test for me. Then testing will get us out of it. But otherwise, it's not going to get us out of it because it leads to a false sense of, okay, so what happens, and I'll just give you the New York State example. What happens when New York State, because we're up to almost 2 million people that we've tested. So what happens when we've tested all 20 million of us? Do we start testing us all again? What happens then? Because you've tested me on a nasal pharyngeo swab. So on May 27th, I didn't have it. On May 29th, I did. So do I have to now get back at the end of the line and get tested again? You know what I mean?
That's why I said it's like disorientation. It's like craziness. It's trying to figure this out. But here's one thing that you've always been consistent in your message, at least to me. And when in speaking with people, or, especially when it comes to health, wellness, and lifestyle, what we can focus on and start making an impact is on ourselves, our immune system, supplementation. Yes. And that's, again, something I want to talk about. Let's talk about how can we boost up that immune system, bring it to that great level where we can protect ourselves. because frankly, that's the best thing you can do, correct?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, for people who may not have watched, one of our earlier shows, but like the thing is, the main nutritional supplements for this are vitamin D, vitamin C, vitamin A, vitamin E, zinc. Those are pretty basic things. Now, I could talk about, all the other, there's a lot of mushroom extracts that I like. There's oregano, there's olive leaf, there's monolaurin, which comes from coconut oil. There's a ton of nutritional supplements that I love, and I write about them in my newsletter. People could sign up for the newsletter. It's free. They could see, what I talk about in terms of dosages and things like that. But I think, take care of your diet a little bit at a time. Sugar will decrease your immune system. You should always remember that. Sugar decreases my immune system. So every time you're reaching for that, whatever, donut, ice cream, whatever, apple, sugar decreases my immune system. Maybe I should think about something else. And so there's so many different things that you could make that you don't need sugar for. That will still satisfy your sweet tooth. People are always asking me, what can I do for breakfast? I'm getting bored of eggs. I'm getting bored of protein shakes. Well, I always tell people non-traditional breakfast foods, or how about making like a protein shake pancake or a protein shake waffle or an egg waffle. I mean, it's really super simple. You take eggs, you scramble them up, you throw some Parmesan cheese in it. You could put in a little almond flour if you want or not. That's optional. And you throw it in a waffle maker and it comes out as a waffle.
I didn't even think of doing that. I mean, that
You
was
get
actually
protein powder. You get a protein powder shake, right? You mix it with a little less water. And I forget what else I put in it. There's something else. You can put all sorts of things in it.
What's a protein powder? What's a protein powder that you like to make shakes? Like one that you highly recommend that you find that it's a good shake to start with, whatever. Like, what do you recommend?
Well, I can always recommend mine because it's amazing, but my own brand. But otherwise, anyone that's out there, I mean, the things to really look for when you're looking for protein shakes is that they come from cows that do not have growth hormones, and growth hormones or antibiotics in them. So you have to look for something that has like a health, this product not made from RVBH, no antibiotics. These animals were pastured, blah, 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 blah. That's why I know mine.
What do you want? There's something that you want to avoid in a protein shake.
Yes. So the things to avoid, you look at the nutrition facts on the back of the bottle. And it should say, stand by. This is not my brand, by the way, so I'm not being pushy. So here. So when you look at the supplement facts,
okay.
I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah.
You have to look for total carbohydrate. So if you see total carbohydrate on there, it says 2 on this one. You want it to never be more than 5.
Oh, okay.
Total carbohydrate will include sugars and fiber, and you never want it to be more than 5.
Got it.
And then that's where it'll be, that's where it'll be good. And see how it says, no artificial chemicals, cows not treated with growth hormone, things like that. That's what you're kind of looking for.
But I'm glad you brought up the carbohydrates because some of them are like way up there.
Oh, yeah, well, because they're sweetened with sugar. They're not. It's basically Kool-Aid with a little bit of protein thrown in.
Even like the protein powder, those bars and stuff like that. Even my own daughters who are teenagers were looking into like, protein bars and protein shakes. That's why I'm asking. And it's funny you mentioned it because they're all over it. It's like the new thing, teenagers are teenagers. This is like what they're focused on now. They're going into bikini season, so they're a little more anxious than normal. So,
Epic bars, there are plenty. There are plenty of like bars out there. But a lot of them are nothing but candy. They're really nothing but Snickers bars in a different packaging. So like there's things like that you can do. Change your recipes. I've put recipes on my website now, so that people can go to the website, check out the recipe du jour or the recipe du week. I don't know how often we're putting them up, but they're all coming from my books and things like that, just so that people have some tools that they can use to take advantage of this time, because right now it's what I'm seeing outside in the world is that it's utter chaos. People are like sort of anxious to get out and about, and they don't know what to do about it. And then there's so I think work from here. This is where you need to work from. Your heart, your home. This is your home, your body, your temple. Work on that. And you need to get enough sleep. Make sure you're sleeping. Stay away from social media. Stay away from your phones. Stay away from the news cycle as much as possible. Because if they don't have viewers, they won't have anything to talk about. So, but that's in our power. That's also in our power. If we allow them to do nothing but spew lies, whichever side of the fence you belong to, because I believe they're all spewing lies at this point.
Okay.
So whatever side of the aisle you're on, don't let them preach to you. Maybe you should take some time to think about it for yourself. Think about, we've never had, and then I just happened to see this thing that said, this may never go away. Well, you know what? Coronaviruses are here to stay.
But haven't they been around anyway?
They've always been around. Our dogs and cats have coronaviruses, so they're always around. So there's another, fear mongering headline.
It doesn't stop. And that's why.
And it's not healthy for you.
Exactly.
So now I am going to take the stand and tell people, stop looking at it. Stop paying attention to it. It's not healthy. You do not need that information in your life at all. Take the time. You would read all of that nastiness, all of that vileness, all of that anger, all of that hatred that's pouring out of the news media, off of social media. Take all of that energy and turn it into, how can I make myself a better person, a healthier person, someone I want to be around. So when I unleash myself out to the world, how can I be the best person I can be? And that's by sleeping, getting enough sleep, turning off your social media devices and don't looking at them. Don't read the news. There's nothing you're going to miss in 24 or 72 hours. Trust me, nothing you will miss. If there's something that's going to happen, your friend will tell you. So just pay attention to that. Use old-fashioned techniques. Zoom, FaceTime, Zoom, things like, to stay in touch with your friends. You do not need to be instant messaging people on Instagram or Facebook so that, billionaires can make even more money and disseminate even more false information. And I'm not being a conspiracy theorist here. There's so many more prescriptions have been written for antidepressants. Like I think 70% of Americans are now on an antidepressant right now, or an anti-anxiety medication because of what's going on right now. So that's another thing. You have to take charge of your health. And the way to do that is eating correctly. Getting rid of the sugar will help. Getting rid of the extra caffeine that you probably don't need but have because it's lying around in the house. You don't need it. If you sleep well, if you move your bowels correctly, if you exercise, all of those things are going to help you get through this time of crisis and prepare yourself for your next phase, not whatever phase they think is coming on and all of that stuff. We cannot be worried that we're letting people out and that we're all going to get sick again and there's going to be a second wave. I mean, what I worry about is the fall. Right? Because guess what? We are going to get flu season in the fall. And the symptoms are very much the same. So, but why are we worrying about that in May when we should be worrying about how are we going to fix this problem so that people feel safe enough to go about their daily lives? That and the fact that we have an election coming up in November are the two things we need to be focusing on, in my opinion. Our health, how to get out of this dilemma, or how to make sense of this dilemma in a realistic way, and worrying about the election and making sure it takes place and how we're all going to do it safely. And I think if people focused on the positives, because those are ways of moving forward, right? Taking charge of your health. That's an actionable moving forward technique. How are we going to get out of this dilemma? Those are actionable techniques. right? And it doesn't mean that I need you to sit there and figure out a vaccine. I need you to figure out how you're going to be a good person in the world and how you're going to take this and what messages are you going to take away from all of this and how are you going to act. Like the city has been so calm and so nice. And now all of a sudden, for the first time coming up to the office this morning, I saw trucks and people yelling at each other again, like in crosswalks, screaming at each other. That has not happened in the last 2.5 months.
So the city
So,
gets back to kind of normal, it sounds like.
but why should we go back to that normal?
I agree.
And that's coming from our anxiety. So really look at where all that's coming from so that we can emerge from this really in a better place than when we came from. And yes, I'm talking about health, nutrition, and wellness, but you can't separate this from the rest of our bodies right now because it's impossible, because this is what's driving us all crazy. It really is. I mean, half of the patients I see are anxious.
Everyone I've been speaking to is anxious, but again, I think what you've constantly focused on and what we need to focus on is start with ourselves. Listen to your needs and wants. This is the time to do it. We can change things, make adjustments, and moving forward that we didn't have the opportunity time to do beforehand. There's the positive in that. It doesn't have to be panic and pandemonium and feeding into the frenzy. Stop. Take the time. You're giving us the tips. Look at your diet. Look at your sleep. Everything you've consistently said. And again, we discussed today because we're going to have to keep discussing it because this is affecting people. The anxiety levels are through the roof. It's affecting young children. What happened? What are we going to do? We're going to start putting all the kids now on antidepressants?
Well, if Big Pharma had their way, yes, they would love that. They would love nothing more than to get a 4-year-old on drugs for the rest of their lives.
I know.
But yeah, I think that's a very real fear for people is what do we do with our kids this summer? They're not going to go to summer camp. Our pool's going to be open. Are they? So what happened to swim lessons? What happened to all those things?
Bikes are sold out. Skateboards are.
Oh yeah, you can't get a bike. You can't get a skateboard. You can't get a razor. You can't get anything.
I tried to get a basketball hoop from my son, and they keep canceling the order. The manufacturers. At least I'm happy people are doing things and they're active. That's the one silver lining I'm seeing everywhere. I've also seen the pure rush of people getting pool permits now. So I don't know which direction people are feeding the frenzy. I just think people need to slow down, focus on yourself, what you need to do. Health comes first. Once you're healthy, you can deal with everything. And it starts with what we're putting into our bodies, but what's going through our mind first and foremost. Correct?
But it's also, but when you think about that, you think about how people are looking for external ways of doing this, right? Looking for the pool permits, the this, the that. And I'm not saying that's wrong, right? We all need a release. We all need to do something. We need to get out of the house. Like, we can't be in these four walls. But what's interesting to me though, as we're sitting here chatting, is we live in an isolated part of the world, right? What's going on everywhere else? I don't know. So I don't mean to be this expert on the rest of the country because I don't know, but I do know what people are feeling. You know what I mean? Even though they might have more freedom and liberty to do things, it's still, you wouldn't be having rioting in several states right now and looting and, police clashes and all of that stuff if people were feeling safe.
Exactly.
And people are not feeling safe. So please, please, please find safety. I'll never forget this one, and then we can end. I'll never forget this one. I was living in Dallas at the time. And it was my first tornado. And on the television, they can tell you where the tornado's going block by block. And so I'm watching it because it was my first tornado, and I'm thinking, oh, this is interesting. And they're like, go to your safe place. And I'm like, I've been in therapy for 35 years and I've never found my safe place. What do you think? What makes you think I'm going to find it now? Just a joke, just kidding. But,
what did you do?
But I'm sorry?
What did you do?
I'm like, I don't have a safe place. So I'm just going to see if, I was just making sure it didn't come down my block. I was holding onto the dog so it wouldn't be like a Wizard of Oz moment where I was anti-emming up into the tornado. But and I think that rings true is find your safe place. And if your safe place has to start here, because if you're not safe here, you can't be safe anywhere else.
Oh, Doc, I mean, I couldn't have thought of a better way to end our session today. And something that we have to look forward to and discussing in the future is people need to start finding that safe place and a way to feel that. So I,
Yeah, and let people tell us what they want. I'm happy to do recipes for people. I'm happy to,
well, that's good.
talk through all sorts of things. I'm hosting this virtual happy hour for Whole Foods Magazine. So I came up because they've seen some of the drink things that I've done, and so I made an immunitini, that has like ginger in it and like all these like immune things like CBD oil and stuff like that. And then I made a dessert one as well with
When are
like
you
with
doing
the
that?
chocolate protein shake. It is June 12th.
Well, you're going to give us that information. I'm going to be running there. Maybe we'll do a quick check-in with you over the weekend, like a little, like a happy hour to kick off the weekend or something. Or
Yeah,
your
we can do
custom
anything we
cocktail.
want.
No,
Absolutely.
yeah.
I make custom cocktails for everyone.
Okay. Then I'm looking forward to cheering with that.
All
Thank
right.
you, Doc, for
Perfect.
joining me today.
All right. My pleasure. Talk to you soon.
Enjoy the rest of the day.
You too. Bye.